Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Hector. I'm the Executive Director of Residential Hospice, and I'm delighted you're able to join us this afternoon in a very unique and different approach to our annual general meeting. The outbreak has got us all doing things differently and perhaps less comfortably or less desirably than we would like, and we're going to do the best we can under these circumstances to have a good informative meeting. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Rowcliffe, our board chair.
Thank you, Alex. Before we start, I'd ask everyone that you join me in a moment of silence in recognition of all those that we have served at hospice, and especially in memory of our past board member, Kelly Graham. So we just take a moment of silence for that, please. Thank you. It is with gratitude and appreciation that we at the Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce acknowledge that our hospice home is within the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and Chippewas of Nawash, known as Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as they are the traditional keepers of this land. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Alex said, my name is Paul Rowcliffe. I'm the chair of the board of directors for Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce Incorporated, and I welcome you to our first virtual annual general meeting of the members of the corporation. By definition, in accordance with our bylaws, members defined as any current board member. The meeting will now come to order. Now, you should have received an agenda for this evening, and I will be following the sequence set out in that agenda. Each member of the corporation is entitled to participate during this meeting, and this means that each member can move or second a motion. I'd ask that anyone making or seconding a motion please state their name so that the information can be properly recorded. In addition, each member is entitled to vote on the resolution being considered. Our secretary will poll each member by name and await a yay or nay vote. Finally, each member is entitled to ask questions arising out of the resolutions and matters of business being presented. Pursuant to the general operating bylaws of Rhgb, I will act as chair of this meeting, and Jennifer Dault will act as our secretary. Notice of this meeting has been published in the newspapers and on social media, circulated in the municipalities in which the members of the corporation reside. In addition, notice of this annual meeting was sent to each member and to the auditors. I will ask now that the secretary please poll voting members in attendance by name.
So Jennifer, you're on mute.
This is to establish quorum.
So Jennifer, you're on mute. If you could poll everybody by name, thank you.
Yep. So to establish quorum, Elizabeth McKay, yay or nay?
We've lost Liz.
Hear me?
Bill Pearson.
Yeah, sorry, hang on for a second. I just heard Elizabeth faintly in the background. Liz, can you say that again?
Yay, I'm here. I'm here.
Great.
Okay. Bill Pearson.
Yay.
Paul Rowcliffe.
Present.
Hildegard Huff.
Here.
And Susan Batten.
I'm here.
Thank you, Jennifer. Let the minutes reflect that there are 5 voting members of the corporation in attendance, which constitutes a quorum of at least 3 voting members to hold this meeting in accordance with the general operating bylaws for Rhgb. Due notice having been given and a quorum being present, I declare this meeting to be properly constituted for the transaction of business. Now, some of you may not know all the members of the board of directors, so I'd like to introduce the members as well as the management staff. I would like to also acknowledge and thank Gwen Potter from Baker Tilly for their support and attendance this evening. So I'll ask each member to acknowledge themselves with a wave as I call your names out in alphabetical order. Dr. Susan Batten, she's a voting director. Alex Hector, he's our executive director, non-voting. Dr. Alex Hodson is our medical director, non-voting. Hildegard Huff, a director, voting. Liz McKay, we don't have a video of, but she is our treasurer, also voting. And Bill Pearson, a voting director and also head of the South Satellite Committee. I want to say thank you to our volunteer board members for your commitment and service to the hospice over the past year. Your contributions and expertise have been invaluable. And I especially want to take this opportunity to thank our treasurer, Liz McKay, for all the extra time and work she's had to put in helping Alex navigate the various government COVID relief packages. It's been somewhat daunting.
Yeah.
I want to thank the executive team, Alex Hector, Dr. Alex Hodgson, Shannon Yo, Jennifer Dault, and Rachel Taylor. Their guidance and leadership kept our doors open, our frontline staff supported and safe. Also, a special acknowledgement to Ann Alford, Mel O'Neill, Sandy Holmes, Lisa Campbell, and Amy McConaughey for their commitment to keeping Chapman House open and a resident care as normal as possible. Special thank you to our amazing volunteers for their ongoing support. Early in the COVID timeline, they had to relinquish their in-house support, and they've been patiently waiting for the moment when we could start bringing them back in. To our community of donors, we want to say thank you for your ongoing support of hospice, without which we could not deliver the incredible level of end-of-life care to those in need in our community. A special thank you and acknowledgement of the dedication and heartfelt care provided by our frontline staff, and how that team came together through this COVID crisis was amazing. I don't think we'll ever be able to thank them enough. And I know many of them are part of this meeting today. Our management staff with us this evening are Shannon Yo, who's our manager of resident and family care, Jennifer Dault, who's our operations manager and acting secretary tonight, Rachel Taylor, who's our manager of fund development, and Alex Hector, of course, our executive director. To quote Maya Angelou, they may forget your name, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So thank you to all of our staff. Now I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the previous year's general annual meeting held on September 25th, 2019. Do I have someone to make that motion?
Bill Pearson, I would make that motion.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a seconder?
Elizabeth McKay.
Thank you, Liz. Is there any discussion? I'll now ask our secretary to poll the members for either a yay or nay vote on acceptance.
All in favor of acceptance of the minutes?
You have to poll each person individually.
Bill Pearson,
Yay.
Susan Batten,
Yes.
Billy Huff.
I was ill at the time,
And-
so I wasn't present.
Okay. Paul,
Yes,
So that would be marked as an abstain.
yes, abstain. Yeah. Is that, we got everybody?
and that was Liz as
me.
well.
Yeah.
Liz, I say yes.
Yes, okay. Then if there, is there any discussion? If there wasn't, then I would say unanimously carried. Thank you, everyone. There are various reports that are contained in the community report that was distributed to everyone. And in the honor of time constraint, we would like to present but not read the report of the chair of the board and the executive director, and just make those noted as read. And now I'd like to call upon Gwen Potter of the accounting firm Baker Tilly LLP to present the auditor's report and financial statements of the corporation for the year ending March 31st, 2020. It's over to you, Gwen.
Paul, just if I may, before I introduce our auditors, Gwen unfortunately had a multiple commitment tonight and asked her business partner, Devin Morrison, to step in. And Devin, I'm going to unmute your microphone. There we go.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Gwen sends her regrets. It's a popular night for AGMs, apparently. So I'm a partner here at Baker Tilly Owen Sound, and Gwen has asked me to just step in and present the statements as they were prepared. So if you're looking and following along in the package, the independent auditor's report is the starting place. It's the opinion is up top. It's a clean opinion. Qualified for the completeness of donations, which is typical for organizations that derive fundraising and donation revenue. But otherwise, it was a clean audit report. On to the balance sheet. Total assets are in line with the prior year at 5.7 million. And the fund balances are similar. The deficit in the capital fund is decreasing, and the total fund balance is 5.02 million, with liabilities of 748,000. Flipping to page 5 quickly, the statement of operations for the year. Overall, there's a deficit of, an excess of revenues over expenditures of 47,000, and the breakdown of that is a surplus in the capital fund of 197,000, which relates to donations received for the satellite site, and a excess of expenditures over revenues of 245,000 in the general fund, with most of that being amortization on the property and equipment of 168,000. So that brings, if you sort of flip back to page 4, that brings the fund balances. The general fund at the balance at the end of the year is 5.7 million. And the capital fund is a deficit position of just under 700,000 for a net balance of the funds of just 5.02 million. Gwen and Sarah, who conducted the audit, want to thank the team for all of the cooperation and support. They had nothing but positive things to say this year. And I'll open it up to questions if anyone has any. I'll do my best to answer, and if I can't, then I can certainly pass any questions along to Gwen.
So at this stage, we're only taking questions from board members, and we'd be more than happy to take questions from the general audience, and I'll have more direction on that in a few minutes.
The board has had the opportunity to go over these numbers obviously ahead of time, so I think most of our questions have already been dealt with, other than to say thank you again for all the help.
Great.
No problem.
All right, thank you very much, and thanks to Gwen too for all the work she's done. And now would like to entertain a motion to adopt the following resolution concerning an appointment of the auditors. Be it resolved that Baker Tilly LLP be appointed auditors of the corporation to hold office until next annual meeting, and the board of directors be authorized to fix the auditor's remuneration. Do I have someone to make that motion?
Hi, it's Susan. I can make that motion.
Thank you, Susan. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. I will now ask Secretary again to poll for yea or nay votes.
Okay. Bill Pearson,
Yay.
Hildegard Huff,
Yay.
Elizabeth McKay,
Yay.
Susan Batten,
Yes.
and Paul Rowcliffe.
Yes. Is there any other discussion on that motion? Then it's unanimously carried, and I thank everyone, and I thank you again, especially to our auditors. At this moment, we'll deal with the election of directors. In view of this unusual circumstance of COVID, and in order to provide continuity of leadership, all current board members are remaining in place and in the positions they currently hold. And where required, we will have their terms renewed. There are currently 3 vacant board positions, and as board chair, I will help as we address filling these vacancies in the upcoming months. We have a process in place for that. I've actually had a lot of response to the board membership requests, so that's exciting. Now then, we had pre-submitted questions. Again, because of this format, it's just the best way of doing things. So I'm going to ask Alex to go ahead with the questions that were submitted ahead of time.
Great, thanks, Paul. And for those of you who submitted questions in advance, thank you very, very much. Being able to answer your questions is good for hospice because we are a very important community organization, and it's important that the community get all the information they need to understand how we operate and feel confident and secure in supporting our organization, whether it be financially or spiritually or through volunteering. So thank you for those questions. I also recognize that these are unusual times, and if people have not been able to get, didn't have a chance to ask a question in advance or have questions as a result of attending this meeting, please be assured that we're interested in answering them. And I would ask you to email us at info@graybrucehospice.com with your questions, and we'd be delighted to do whatever research is necessary in order to respond to them. So again, that email, in case you don't have it, is info@graybrucehospice.com. It's also on our website, and you can go ahead and get that information there. And I can see that Rachel has just posted it up on there using some magical technological tricks. So anyway, thank you for that. So what we're going to do, these 6 questions have been presented, and I'm going to facilitate the conversation here and ask some help from our board members to answer the questions. And so we'll start off with the first question is there a bank account for the new build, and is it being used now to keep the hospice in Owen Sound open? So that's a great question for our treasurer. And so Liz, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Yes, there is a separate bank account where the funds for the new build are kept, and the funds are not being used for current operating expenses for the hospice. There is a lag sometimes in when the donations are received. They're received into our general account, and then we transfer them over to our savings account, which is allocated for the new build. And there can be a slight lag in the timing of that. But at the present time, the funds that are in the account are taken into account all donations received up until the end of August.
Okay, great. Thanks, Liz. Do any board members have any questions or comments from what Liz has just provided? Okay, I'll carry on with the next question. So how much do we have in the bank for our new build in Walkerton, and how much do we need to start? And I'm going to ask Bill Pearson, who is also the chair of the Satellite Development Committee, to help us with that question.
Thanks, Alex. As of March 31st, 2020, there have been $244,187 in donations. From April 1st to August 31st, there are an additional funds from donations of $35,844. This does not include the Golf for Hospice event, which is still being processed. But in addition to these funds, the amount of $147,520 was set aside for the planning Monday. This is provided by, or was provided by, the Ministry of Health. So the total amount we have is $427,551 as of August 31st. The second part of the question is, how much do we need to start? I can tell you we have actually 2 committees in the South. We are working on that the sum right now, but to the penny, I cannot tell you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bill. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, the next question. What are the conditions for resuming volunteerism in all areas of Chapman House? And I'll ask our medical director, Dr. Alex, to comment on that.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, so we certainly miss our volunteers. The volunteers, make a huge part of the heart and soul of Chapman House, and so we are really missing them. We are lucky at this point that we've been able to safely reintroduce some of our volunteers, particularly helping us with reception area. I think the challenge with COVID and this pandemic is always finding that balance between keeping everybody safe, right? So making sure that we are keeping our patients, the patients' families, staff, and also the volunteers safe. We are taking guidance right now from a few different places. So Ministry of Health, looking at in particular their guidelines that have come out around long-term care and how they're handling visitors and people in the space. Also from HPCO, Hospice Palliative Care Ontario, there is 2 different groups from HPCO that meet regularly to discuss the different policies as it relates to COVID. So that would be the medical directors. We meet monthly, and the executive directors meet. And so based on recommendations predominantly from those 2 groups, we're kind of following those guidelines right now, introducing, as we can safely. So, the exact conditions that need to be met, we don't have sort of a roadmap of this is the exact step. Basically what we're doing is, as new information comes to light, we evaluate constantly what we can do in our space and try to make sure that we're in line with recommendations from HPCO and the Ministry of Health.
Great. Thanks so much, Dr. Alex. Does anyone else want to comment on that? I'm certainly not qualified and really appreciate the support and guidance that we receive from Dr. Alex to help us through these very unprecedented times. The next question is, can the community really afford to fund a second facility? And I'll again turn that one over to Bill.
Okay, with your permission, another question was asked pertaining to this question as well, and I'd like to answer them both. The related question is, what is the estimated opening time for the South Bruce Peninsula? These questions would have been easier to answer a year ago. COVID-19 has upset the status quo of our norms. A grave concern is the government's ability to commit unassigned funds. To illustrate this, I looked up some figures. In August 2020, the Fraser Institute published a report that said in the first quarter of finances of the Ontario government this year, we are in debt an additional $38.5 million. To put this in perspective, that is $26,800 for every person in Ontario to pay off the total debt. To service the debt in fiscal year 2018-2019, Ontario spent $12.5 billion, or $1.4 million every hour. All this to say that COVID-19 has increased this debt and continues to do so. Since March, when COVID-19 hit, the cost of lumber alone has increased 30%. We are slowly and methodically continuing with our 2 development subcommittees the board has created in anticipation of favorable government endorsement. I'd like to take this time to thank those committees and all the work that they have done. But the work isn't over, and we're still continuing to do that. To answer the question of whether I think it's sustainable, absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Any other questions or comments on that?
I'd like to also commend the committees that Bill formed in the South. They've worked very hard and very diligently and have done a wonderful job of supporting us at Chapman House, especially when the COVID restrictions stepped in. And I know the heart's there, and I know that the community support is there to have this go forward. We have to wait until situation is better for us to know exactly where we're at. There's a lot of things going on in the background, but Bill, thank you for your leadership, and we're supporting you 100% in trying to get this thing going if we can.
Thanks, Paul. So the final question, I'm going to assign this one to me. And it's a two-parter, and I think the first part has been answered. Is there a separate bank account for the Grey Bruce Hospice in Walkerton? And I think that's been addressed. And is hospice in Owen Sound full now, or being the COVID-19, are you not taking patients? If that's the case, why are all the staff being paid? I just heard a rumor about this just to get my mind straight. So let me address that rumor. So the hospice has never been closed. We've been taking admissions all throughout the outbreak. It has been challenging for staff to manage with all the safety protocols in place, but there are still families in need that need our assistance. We have not been as full as we have been in the past, and that's a combination of circumstances, including, I think, to a certain extent, people more being at home and being able to care for their loved ones or wanting to care for their loved ones during the outbreak. And I think that we're seeing that change as we get further into the outbreak. We're continuing to manage that admission process. We continue to have people out in the community needing our service. So because we've been open and because we've been keeping basically in business throughout the duration, there's been no need to lay off staff. One of the worst things to do, I think, would be to close the hospice on a temporary basis, let everybody go, and then have a huge community need and not being able to respond to it, because we wouldn't necessarily be able to rehire the people back, because obviously they would go out and find other work or other employment for themselves. So, from that perspective, we're making good use of the facility, good use of the resources, and continue to provide our hospice service to the community at large. So just to sort of quell any rumors there, we've been open for business and will continue to be so. So that's it from the question, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn it back over to you.
One question for you, Alex, about that last question. The government funding never changed during this time frame either, did it? No, absolutely correct. In fact, you mentioned earlier in your remarks about some of the government relief programs. So in addition to our normal funding, we've been receiving some additional financial support from the government. All our employees on the front lines were eligible for the pandemic pay that many people may have heard about, that was discussed by Premier Ford. And we're still tapping into some of the government relief. We have the federal emergency wage subsidy. We have an application being processed very shortly. So yes, we're continuing to be well supported by the government. And when I say well supported, I'll qualify that. They don't pay enough. they only pay half or slightly less than half, and that's a whole other story for another time. Fair enough. Thank you, Alex. And thank you again for the pre-submitted questions. And as Alex said, please feel free to send in any other questions, and we will, as a group, get back to you on those with an answer if we have an answer for it. Now then, to the voting members, are there any other matters of business which need to be dealt with at this time that any member needs to bring forward? And okay, hearing none, I'm sorry about that. Classic board chair screwed up, sorry. I thought I had everything turned off. Since there are no further items, the meeting has provided its consent. I will henceforth call this meeting adjourned until September of 2021. Normally, we would have a reception where we could all visit and enjoy each other's company. So instead, I'll just say you're welcome to open your own refreshment and help join us in celebrating and saying thank you to the staff of hospice for their enduring commitment to the health and safety of this community and the caring service that they provide. And I thank everyone for attending, and we'll see you in 2021.